Something new, the CNC. SainSmart 318 PROVer. Going to put it together and get into it. I'm a newbie. Coming up. Hi, I'm Roger. Welcome to the shop. Although actually I'm upstairs from the shop in this little loft apartment that we use as a guest house. But we have no guests right now. And it's a nice dust-free, warm environment. Unlike the shop, which tends to be a little bit more chilly this time of year, and of course there's a lot of dust down there. I'll be using this down in the shop, but I prefer to put it together up here in a clean environment. I don't normally do unboxing videos. I did do one with the 3D printer, which is a previous video. If you've seen that, then you've seen this little location up here. But as I mentioned in the very intro here, I'm a newbie at this. I've never done any CNC work before other than actually working on big industrial CNC machines from the electrical end. Never done any programming, never actually ran one. So this will be a new adventure. I'm going to take you along from the ride. And if you happen to have seen my 3D printer assembly video, this will be just like it. It'll be highly detailed. And if I make mistakes, I'm not going to edit them out. I'm going to leave them in there so you'll see that, yeah, I screw up too, just like everybody else does. Try to follow directions closely, but, you know, things happen. So one thing I did do is download the manual from SainSmart's website and print it out in 8.5 by 11, so it will be what I call a large print edition. These old eyes don't see quite as well as they used to. But we're going to get on with the unboxing here. Yeah, we'll start out with a knife, and hopefully the blade's sharp. This little sign right on the top says, "Open from here," little guy. So we'll follow his directions. Interesting thing I noticed on the shipping labels was this came from China, of course, and went to Los Angeles, and then went to Texas, and then went to Las Vegas, and then came to Illinois. And I got this directly from the SainSmart website. It wasn't through Amazon, although it came in an Amazon box out of Las Vegas. And we have some foam. And the user manual, and here this is why I printed this out on 11.5 or 8.5 by 11 paper, is because this will be kind of small print and my eyes don't work as good as they used to. And these would be the two plexiglass guards with protective paper on. So far everything seems to be well packed. And we got a USB cable and associated wiring here. A little bit more foam. And the power cords, one European and one US. I obviously won't be using the European one because I am in the US. A package of bits. And all of the hardware comes in this nice little box here. Everything's labeled according to what it is. This is really nice. Usually you get just a bag of mixed hardware and then you got to pick it out and sort it out. This will be nice. Make it a little easier. Some Allen wrenches there on the side, although for the most part I use these here because it's just easier to do things with. And if I need to crank down on it, I've got a set of metric Allens for that to work on a little tiny ratchet. And we have some more foam. And I have a whole stack of that. And here would be, this appears, oh, this is wire braid that goes over your wires. Nice little roll of that. And the power supply brick. And the brains of the thing, the circuit board. It's got a nice little guard over it. I've seen some where everything's just wide open. At least a lot of this is protected. Get hold of this. This is the control pad. I'm going to run out of places to set things here. Spindle motor. And I hear some people say that they're not marked plus and minus at the top, but that'll focus in on that. That's very clearly marked, M plus and M minus. I watched a few other assembly videos on this, and seen some people have some problems. And we'll see if I have any problems too. I've also seen some suggestions on things to do, such as putting thread locker on every bolt. And I do have some Loctite 242, I think that's the number, that's the blue, which still allows you to remove, boy, that's in there, still allows you to remove the fastener, although it'll keep it from vibrating out. Complimentary little toy Phillips screwdriver. Well, I call it a toy because I'm used to real high quality tools, but I have my own Phillips, but it's nice that they included that. And the next here appear to be the Gantry. I don't want to pick it up by the spindle holder. Stepper motors for the X and Z axis are already installed. And we have some little plastic covers that snap into the extrusion to cover up the where the wiring passes through. I'll also probably be making some more on my 3D printer to cover up the other extrusion openings that are not used, such as along the top here, because that's just a place for dust to gather. And we have more foam. And I'm running out of places to put things. I don't have a big work table up here. There's this real fancy cover you see on this table. This is an antique oak table, and if I would scratch the top of this, my wife would kill me. Okay, and the next piece here is the bed. More foam. The bed is mostly assembled. Let's get this out of there. And that's everything out of the box, so we'll get that out of the way. Well, that's in there good. Here we have the bed. And what I've, boy, that's a little sticky there. But we'll take care of that. One of the things I've read is that these screws right here will tend to vibrate loose on their own. So I'll be I'm not going to change them. I'll take them out one at a time, put a little blue thread locker on them as I get this assembled. And I see that this axis screw, that's going to need to be mounted. We got a tie wrap over here, so got a few things to do on here. It's not as much assembly as some of the other models I've seen from other companies. But I'll get everything together and we'll get on with putting some of this together. And I got to figure out what to do with all this foam. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, here is the factory manual. And here's the one I printed out. So you can see that the one I printed out is much larger. It's identical to this. It's just bigger and it'll be a little bit easier for me to read. Right now I have this upside down. And I have the stepper motor facing me because one of the things I know I need to do is take these screws out, put a little bit of Loctite 242, which is thread locker, on the threads and put them back in. And I'm going to do them one at a time so I don't lose any type of alignment that may already be done here. Perhaps I'll need to realign something later or check alignments, but if it's aligned well from the factory, I'm not going to mess that up. Well, That wasn't very tight. This doesn't take much. I guess I need to open that first. Just a drop is all you need. So you'll be able to see here, there's not much there, just a little bit of a drop on the end. Yeah, these aren't very tight at all. Well, you get the idea there. I'm not going to bore you with video on me putting thread locker on, you know, all these extra screws. So I'll do that and we'll come back and start with the next step. Okay, I've got all those screws thread locked there. So the next step here, and I've got the manual out here. It's nice having this larger print edition. You need to remove this tie wrap, which I've already done when I was checking this tightness. In fact, that's in here to check all these for tight. And as I did that, of all of these, only one of them was really truly tight. So next we need to put two M6 by 16 bolts in the center here after you align the carriage with the T-nuts that are underneath there. And let's put a little dab of thread lock on these. I really like their organization of their hardware here. That's a real nice touch. And we'll make sure those are both good and tight. Next step are the limit switches. And we need to attach, I guess, cable holders first. Those are these little guys here. And for hardware, we need M3.5. Oh, M3 by 5. And that's a little Phillips head. And there are some holes that are pre-tapped. At the back down here. This is kind of a challenge to try to get this on the camera and get these lined up. Figure out a way to do this. I'm using the screwdriver that came with it because I don't have mine here close. And you need to have that vertical and you need to have it straight. Now I didn't get it straight. I did get it vertical. As I said, I'm not editing out any mistakes I make, so if I make a mistake, you'll get to see it. Hopefully you can see this one going into the corner here, and me trying to find the hole and line it up. Well, that is a magnetic screwdriver, sort of. Well, I'm going to show you a little trick here for keeping those things square. Little machinist square I've got up here. I'm going to lay that down next to it. Hopefully you can see that. Get that square. Hold that up tight next to it. Then tighten the screw up. And now we're square. And I get to do the same thing on the other side. I'll move the bed out of the way this time. That'll give me some room to work. The little guys are stinkers to get a hold of. Come on, square up there. Screwdriver needs more magnetism. If you have something with a magnet on it, like this here little magnetic tray, if you do this with it several times, it'll put some more magnetism into your screwdriver for holding screws. Like that, that's better. Okay, that's 4 of them. It says there's 6 to go in. Well, I don't see exactly where they go though. Well, I'm sure I'll find out as the assembly goes along, but next to be the limit switches. It's these little guys right here. They fit into a little recess right there. And obviously you'll want the, get this in there where you can see it. You'll want that plug facing your cable holders. And we'll be using the same screw, M3x5. Don't tighten both screws until you get them both started. As I can see, if you'll end up with an alignment problem. And I need to do the same thing on the other side, but I need to move the table out of the way. These are the y-axis limits. Keeps the bearings from slamming into the frame. As you're turning this screw, if you put your fingers underneath, pull the table a little bit, it'll go a lot quicker and easier. This side's not quite so easy because it's sitting on a stepper motor and it doesn't want to balance. Yeah, a little bit more magnet on that tip made a big difference. Had too much coffee this morning, I think. Oh, shaky. And like so. Still don't know where those other two cable holders go exactly. I have an idea that it's going to have a T-nut and fit back in here somewhere. But we'll find out as I assemble. It's not shown on the little pictures here. Next are the little rubber feet. That's pretty self-explanatory. Screw these into the four corners. They're not exactly robust. They may serve the purpose. You need the right driver in it though. If you don't want to over tighten them like I just did. Okay, I see if they get, you're going to put a little thread locker on those because I could take my finger and knock that loose. If the machine's sitting on it, it shouldn't really be any lateral movement on it, but the vibration, you never know. See there, I could just take my finger and flip them right out. So if it would be slid around on the bench or the table, you could actually throw everything out of level by the rubber feet coming unscrewed. That was almost too much on that one. It's a pretty tiny screw. See there, I could just spin that out with my thumb, even though I did tighten it up. Okay, we're ready to go to the next step, which is putting the gantry on. Oh, we got to install the limit switches on the gantry. So we'll set this out of the way. There's a little indentation right here where the limit switch goes. Same on the other side. Well, the other side doesn't have the indentation. Motor side doesn't have the indentation. And you obviously want the jack pointing away from the X-axis screw, or the motor would be running right into, or the wire would be running right into the limit switch. This is kind of a dexterity test too here, trying to get that lined up back in there. There again, you don't want to tighten one screw till you get the other one in. Then you can drop the screwdriver too. I guess it'd be nice if this was out of the way. And I'm going to have to turn the screw to get it up there. The other way. And I'll need to do the same thing on the opposite side, and now I need to move it back the other way. The one on the end with the motor requires 2 of these little ABS spacers. And the little dividers fall out of this screw package pretty easy, something to keep in mind. There's one. So it'll be screw, spacer. I can see this is going to be fun. And one started. This is definitely a test of dexterity. When you got fat fingers, it makes it even harder. Well, that was a struggle. They even show you a little before and after picture in the manual. Well, we got them both on there. We'll run this motor back to the center here, just to make it a little bit more balanced. The next thing we're going to be doing is putting this gantry onto the side, onto the base. Okay, the next step is to align these little T-nuts that are in here with this tool that they give you with it. It's a spacing guide to space these little nuts out in there. And one side is longer than the other. The long end of the tool goes towards the back, and the back is back here where the stepper motor is, so it'll sit like this. You need to space these out in there. Get them approximate here with, well, those are in there stiff, which is a good thing because they won't be sliding around. And I mean in there stiff. I've got this held here to get it kind of approximate how far I need to get these slid before I actually stick the tool in the slot. And this is the reason I'm not editing anything out of this. So you can see that not everything is always as easy as video may appear it to be. Those there in that slot slide a little bit easier. And we need to do the same on the other side. Okay, there we are. That was kind of a struggle. Next page, we're going to put the gantry on. And you actually use this as a spacer underneath, like so. So you get the right spacing on the holding the gantry up. Okay, we'll take the gantry, and of course you want the spindle facing the front. I've got this sitting with the stepper motor here at the back. And my little spacer down there, and I've got to set it at an angle because I can't see over there quite as well. And this gantry slips over the top. And we want to align those holes. And we use the spacer so that it doesn't fall down too far. They're asking you to use M6 by 16, or M5 by 14 screws. So get things aligned here. I'm working blind because I'm not on that side of the table. There we are. And I'm going to put a little thread locker on these. Okay, those are all started on that side. I'll just flip it around and do the other side. Or instead of flipping it around, I'll just leave it where it is and do the other side. You don't need to watch me do the same thing twice. Okay, two things. One is I'm short a screw. And I've looked all the way through this box, so I'm going to have to go probably to the hardware store to get an M5 by 14 socket head cap screw because I know I don't have any. The other thing I noticed is, and I don't have these tight yet, but there is the possibility that you could put this together out of square. So I got a little machinist square here that I'm putting along the base rail and along in here. Yeah, it's not square. So I can make absolutely sure everything is square as I tighten these screws up. We want the Z-axis to absolutely be up and down in a perfect vertical line and not skewed back at all. And I think the other thing I'm going to check, just even though I use the spacer, is to make sure the distance from here to here is the same on this side as it is on the other side. I need a good reference point here. Guess I could do the whole thing. 130.15, that's in millimeters. I think I may have just found my missing screw laying on the table. There again, that's why I'm not editing out screw-ups. I'll give this one a little measure here. So I need to zero that first. And we are not the same. I had 130.15, I have 129.54. That's almost a millimeter. So either this one needs to go forward a little bit or the other one needs to go backwards. Well, this side's facing up. In a tapping tool. No, I'm not going to use the head. $130.25. Wow, I wouldn't have thought that would have been too much. $130.14. I'll go with that. Make sure I didn't lose my square here. No, we're still good there. Tighten a couple of these to check that again. $130.14. Tighten the rest of these down. Then I'm going to check the other end again. $130.14. It moved just a hair. So, yep, I can go with that. Make sure we're still square over here. And we are. So, actually ready for the next step. And that looks like it is going to be the spindle motor. Okay, next up is a spindle motor here, and I've just turned around. Here's the motor. It needs to slide down through this collar here till it gets to the top of this sleeve that's right here. And we'll probably need to loosen that screw up first. There's a split here in the sleeve. You'll probably want that to the back. And that is a tight fit. You go right to the top of the sleeve, and then you tighten this screw up. And since this is plastic, I would not over tighten it. It even tells you do not over tighten. Next, to install the motherboard. Okay, that would be this right here. And for this, needs some M3 by 8mm screws. Once you get the screw through the hole in the back plastic plate, these little T-nuts, the raised side goes towards the board. You need to just start that. Just enough so it doesn't fall off. Okay, there's a switch here for on and off. That goes towards the stepper motor. And you want to have all your little T-nuts horizontal there. And that fits right into this extrusion. It needs to be 30 millimeters from the end. No, that's not a metric ruler there. And that little Phillips screwdriver go. Here again, you don't want to over tighten these, you'll break the plastic. Just want to snug them up. And check my measurement again here. Getting just approximate by eyeballing it. 30.52 millimeters, I'll go with that. Next would be the side plates. Okay, the side pieces here. They come with a protective paper on them, like this. And I can tell you, I peeled one off here off camera. I can tell you that paper does not come off in one piece, so have fun with that. This sits on here like so. Pretty straightforward. And for that we have M5 by 10 bolts. And the matching T-nuts. Which there again, the raised side goes towards the plastic surface. And we'll just get these started, a thread or two. You want to get your little T-nuts to align horizontally here. Hopefully they'll stay that way while you flip it. And it all just drops in there. And you tighten it up with the right tool. The way those little T-nuts work, and you'll be able to see it down through the plastic, as you tighten this up, they will turn and flip 90 degrees. Don't over tighten these, by the way, you'll break plastic. I'm not using Loctite on this. I can't see these coming loose, vibrating anywhere. There's no stress on them. And when you're done, it'll look like that. I'm going to do exactly the same thing on the other side. Okay, next up is the wiring. And even though you see this great big gob of wires, it's not as intimidating as you think. Everything is labeled. In fact, here's one that's for the X limit right here. And you get this braided loom that you can put over the cable, especially the ones that are exposed. Whether or not you would want to do it on every one, yeah, that's kind of up to you. There's quite a bit of it here. It looks like there's enough to actually cover every one. I want to show you some tricks on this. You notice that it's just a flat, hollow piece. If you push on it like this, it makes it bigger. So you have to get these ends through this little loom. It's not as hard as it looks. You could take your end here. There's other ways too they could tell you to taping it to a pencil, but I've worked with this stuff a lot. Squeeze it a little bit below, stick your plug down in there and get it started. Then below that, stick your, keeping a hold of the end, just keep working it up there till you get close to where you want to be at the end. I don't want to take it all the way there. Back it up a little bit. Cut it. These aren't as sharp as they used to be. Now to make sure the ends don't fray out, I had to go search for this because I don't smoke. I need a lighter. Just sear the end a little bit with a lighter. Don't burn yourself doing it. Then when you slide it back up through, there's a little label here. I'll get that down inside. There's your end coming out. I'm trying to roll the label up so it'll go down inside. This one here happens to be for the X limit switch. And you'll get a piece that's nicely covered like this. Now to close the ends up, you would use a plastic wire tie, and they give you quite a few of them here. And I have a lot more of these yet because I was an electrician. I still have a ton of these. Just wrap a wire tie around it. Make sure you get it the right way. That tie where you want it. Snug it up. I'll do the same on the other end here. If you're wondering about these, one end is fatter than the other. The one end's fatter than the other. This other end goes through the flat side, not the side that's sticking out. If you put it through the other side, it won't hold. So when you're done, it'll look like this, and it's just a matter of cutting the ends off. You're probably not going to have one of these. These are very expensive, but I worked as an electrician for years, so I have one. But it cuts it off without leaving any kind of sharp edge on it. If you've ever done this and worked with these and cut them off and then cut your finger or something on the sharp edge left by it, that's why we use these. And that one there was a defective wire tie. I may go get my good ones. These are obviously inexpensive. When I pulled on that one, it broke. So we'll try another one here, and if that keeps up, I'll go get my own. And it'll look just like that. Okay, this is for the X limit. And these connectors are keyed. They'll only go in one way, so don't try to force it. You may see me fumbling around that a little bit there. It didn't seem like it was lining up, but it finally does. Okay, your jacks across the top here are for the motors, not for the limits. The limit inputs are down here along the bottom. Okay, your first two here are for the X. The next two are for the Y. And the last two are for the Z. They are marked. They're at the very bottom. They go in till they snap. Well, since I'm right here at this end of it, we'll do the X motor. Find the right cable here. Z motor, Y motor. Should be a short one. There it is. We have the X-axis motor. And I want to cover this one as well. So this is the end that I cut. Again, the good trick, get it sprung out. Get your end started in there. And just keeping your finger below, expand it out, move it through. There's close to where I want to be. I'll back it up just a little bit. Cut that off. These are not as sharp as they should be, but I used them for I don't know how many years in the trade. So they've had a lot of use. That out a little bit here, like singe the end. Blow on it so I don't burn myself. Work my end back out. Exactly the same way as I put it in. So then we look like this when we get done. This is a flat cable going into a round hole, so it's a square thing, square peg into a round hole, you could call it. And I'm putting the label in, I'm putting towards the motherboard, so if I would ever have to change the motherboard out, they'd be labeled and I wouldn't have to try to figure out what went where. Cut the loose ends off. There's our X-axis motor, and that plugs right up here into the top. You get it the right way around. Just like so. And next I'm going to do the what they call the X limit minus. This one over here was the X limit plus. This one over here will be the X limit minus. So I need to find that cable. X limit minus, there we go. Okay, for this one, there's a strip that goes in here after we get the this connected. We'll get this plugged in. It's going to go down and it's going to route right inside of this channel down here at the bottom. They give you this sealing strip to snap over it, and you leave a spot out for it to come out of the other end. That's like a really long wire for that. Then we'll use the top channel. This here routed. And this will route down in this top channel. Give you a long strip and a short strip here, and this is where you would be using the long one. This just snaps down into the top of the extrusion. And you'll be left with some wire hanging out the other side, which is what's going to go to the X minus limit switch plug. I'm going to put a little piece of loom over that, just to make it look nice, I guess. I'll sear that first, figure out what I did with my lighter. Good thing I don't smoke. I never keep track of it. Of course, you don't want to grab that too soon, you burn your fingers. I'm going to get a wire tie started on the other end here. In fact, I'm going to dump these out. Get a hold of them. And I'll get my tag out of there so I can see it if I need to at some future point. I got it buried clear down in the loom. And that one's taped down to the wire so tight I can't slide that one. So I guess we'll just cover it up. There we go. And this will plug into the X minus. And we get it turned around the right way. Just like so. Next would be the Y axis, which is what's down underneath. We get the two Y cables here, Y plus and Y minus. There we go. Y minus, of course, is back here at the back. And the Y plus goes on the back limit. Which is down here. Of course, we have two wire tie holders there. And I'm going to want to put some wire loom on this. Put my tie on ahead of time. Now, since this is going to have to lay down in these little, I call them tie wrap clips or wire tie holders, it's going to make it easier if you put the wire tie holder through there first and just let it sit there with the flat side up. Like so. We'll plug in the limit. Maybe. Now the holder, wire tie holder, is really close to this plug, so you're going to have to bend a 90-degree bend on the end of this to get it around that wire tie holder. There we go, finally. Of course, that other wire tie broke off. I may need to go get my own. I am really not liking these wire ties that they supplied with this. Alright, time for a pause. Okay, I'm back, and I'm not going to use these supplied ties. I'm going to use these. This is a professional wire tie. They're made by Panduit. It's called Pan Tie. The model of the black ones here, if you want black ones, is PLT1M-CO. It's right down here. If you don't care if they're black, you can leave the CO off. They're black and they're UV resistant. Of course, I'm not going to worry about UV here. But these are much stronger than these supplied ones. And I'm not going to screw with these cheap supplied ones anymore. After 40-some years in the trade, electrical trade, there's no reason to fight this. These are just a little bit heavier than the other ones, but they are much better made. They lock better, they flow better, they're easier to start. My cable routed up over the top. Lock down. Okay, there is that limit. Get that plugged into the back. Of course, this is a Y-limit plus, and there's a designation right on underneath the jack where it goes, just like that. We'll make this neater. We'll make this here neater as we go. Now I have to do the other side. Here again, you're going to have to bend a little 90 on the end of that. Looks like that to get it in past that cable holder. Snaps in like that. Of course, with these better ties, I didn't need to mess around with putting them in ahead of time, although I could have. Since this one's going to go inside this back cover, I didn't put the loom on it. No need for it there. What do I do with my tie wrap gun? There it is. Alright, this goes into a little channel on the back here. And it'll be coming out on top. You've got this little blue plastic cover that goes over it. And just presses in like so. Back to this, I need to put a piece of loom on it. This label's not stuck down as good as the other one was. I'm going to have to make it fold it over a little bit. That's close to where I want it. Yep, forgot to sear the end of that one. This is why I sear them. They come unraveled real easy. I'm missing that lighter again. Good thing I don't smoke. There it is. I never keep track of a lighter. Okay, and this will go into Y minus. Here again, I'll be making things neater back here when we get done. Now we have the Z-axis limit cable, so I got to find the Z limit cable. Should be another one here. There's the other one. Oh, that's a Z motor. There's his other Z limit. Of course, one's longer than the other. And the longer one, of course, will go to the bottom. That's the Z limit minus. Now I'm going to put both of these into the same piece of loom, instead of having two separate looms coming up there. And we'll start with, make sure we get both ends the same here. Easiest way to do this is to start one and then get the other one and put it in right behind it. Stop a little short there. Okay, now you're going to need to figure out which one's which, because one's shorter than the other. The shorter one goes on top. I'm not going to put the tie wrap on there quite yet. And the longer one goes on the bottom. And these are marked Z plus and Z minus. And it's also marked on the motherboard Z plus and Z minus. Now you want to make sure you don't have this anywhere where it's going to snag, because this moves. These other things don't. Z limit plus, Z limit minus. There's all our limit switches. So next we'll be moving on to the motors. So you got the stepper motors for the X, Y, and Z. And the cables are labeled accordingly. There's the Y-axis motor. And there's my Z-axis motor. So I actually might do the Z-axis motor next, since I've got this set up here right on top. Put me a piece of loom over it. Now this plug's a little wider, so you may need to bow this out just a little bit more to get it in there. But the principle's the same. You know, I've seen people recommend taping the end to a pencil and pushing the pencil through. This is a whole lot easier. I really need to get some sharper dikes up here. There again, I'm keeping the labels towards the motherboard. This will plug right onto the back of the stepper motor, like so. It'll follow over, and I've got to make sure I get into the right slot here. This is the Z-axis, it'll be right over here. Oh, the Y-axis motor. Well, they sure give you a lot of cable for that. Looking at how much more loom I got here left. If I use this on here, I won't have enough for the motor leads, and I definitely want to have the spindle motor loomed, so I am going to do the spindle motor next. Here we got the two leads that actually plug onto the motor. If you're going to try to shove these down through this, you're going to have a time. So here I'll be starting with the other end. It's actually got the plug on it. So with these spade connectors here, they'd be snagging all over in that braid. And try to keep the label down inside there. Except braid's catching on the tag. Come on now. Now we have to go to trick number 2, where you start the end of the braid and you just fold it over inside itself. That way you can get right by little snaggy things like that. Okay, on the back here, the motherboard at the top, spot right here for the spindle. Except you got to put it in there right side up. There we go, and it'll click and lock. On the top of the motor is M plus and M minus, clearly marked. The red goes on M plus and the black goes on M minus. These little spade connectors, you want to push them until they lock in. Now this moves and these move. A good spot for, oh, there's where those 2 other cable holders go that I couldn't figure out earlier. They go up here. And I put those on. I couldn't figure out from the picture they had there exactly where those were supposed to go. Get these started. And not quite tight yet. And the 2 cable holders will go up here. One of the steps I skipped over was putting the hold downs together for the bed. I didn't see the need to do that at the time. It'll come when I go to actually test this thing. I'll be putting the hold downs together and making a spoil board at that time. You know, in hindsight, that would be a little neater going up the inside than the outside, so I'm going to change that. It may say that in the directions too. I just never could quite understand where they wanted you to put those when I was doing the initial setup on this. So if that's a mistake, you got to see another mistake. I'm going to put these on the other side. So we can do this upside down. I had a hard enough time doing it right side up, the little screws. Well, I got that one okay. Okay, I don't know where I lost the camera. I just happened to look up and saw that the battery had died and the camera shut down. But I was in the process of getting the last wire routed for the Y-axis motor. I was going to put the loom on it. And I have one little piece left somewhere. There's really no extra loom here, so if you're going to rely on just the loom that comes with the unit, don't go overboard with it. Cut pieces too long because you won't have enough. I'll plug him in up there where he goes, right side up. And I'm going to do a little more cable management here. Put these together. This isn't necessary, it's just an appearance thing. It also moves the looms away from where the USB connection is. Okay, here I want to leave the spindle motor out of a tie because I'll be changing that when I put the laser head on, but I would like to tie the limit and the stepper motor together, except I want the spindle motor on the other side of it. There we go. These components do move and you don't want them rubbing on anything. Here you can probably see there's no sharp edge at all on that. That's why a lot of electricians use these. People that build control panels definitely use them. They're a lot better than going back and having to try to cut them off with wire cutters. Okay, next step. Final checks. That's to lubricate the rods. You need to use a dry lubricant. You don't want to use anything like grease or oil because that's going to be attracting dust and dust will stick. So you want to use a dry lube like PTFE, Teflon, or in my case, show you what I have here. This is made by WD-40. It's actually made for bicycle chains, although I don't ride a bicycle anymore. I do use this on some equipment I have that's chain driven, including one of our garage door openers, so it doesn't dust doesn't stick to it, and dust does not stick to it. I have used this on some of the grandkids' bikes, and no complaints. Also prevents rust. So we'll get a little bit of that dabbed on here where we need to. Okay, backtracking just a little bit. I forgot about the emergency stop. That's this little guy right here. And when I build my enclosure, I'm going to have a second emergency stop, and that one will be on the outside of the cabinet. And it'll be in series with this one, and at the time I do it, I'll explain all that. This little guy is a little nut on the back. So hole on the right-hand side here. Just goes through there. And the little plate will go on, and the nut will go on over the back of it. Cute little guy. I'm used to a lot bigger ones. Yeah, I guess it does. Well, that's some fine threads there. Twist to release. When you push the button, it lock in. Twist it to release it. It brings it back out. I'm used to much bigger ones, but they work the same way. There's a plot on the back of the board here at the bottom. It's got a little jumper in it. That little jumper needs to be taken out before you plug this in. And that jumper is in there in case you weren't using the stop, because this is a normally closed circuit. And when you trip it, it opens it up. This is keyed, but by golly, it's going to be tough to get in there. There we go. I'm going to add another cable tie here to keep that back out of the way. I'll probably have to take that off later when I build my outside case to when I put the series thing in here. Be nice to have that in some loom, but I don't have any more right here. The other loom I do have is way too big for this application. But this will keep it from getting snagged on anything. Okay, there's what everything should look like when you're done. You've got the cable for the control pad. I guess we'll stick that on while I'm back here. That is keyed. There's a square key on the bottom of it. And that key goes towards the bottom. Just like that. That'll plug into the control pad. And that's where it looks. Control pad here's got a little protective thing on it you can peel off. And you'll have a jack right here which is keyed. Again, you have that square key. The square key right here has to go and match up. Plugs in just like that, and you got your SD card slot. Okay, next we have the collet. The collet, there's a nut. I have it in my hand right here. This was screwed onto the spindle. And this, the collet comes in a little box. And it needs to be taken out of there and put into the nut, put back on the spindle. Nice cute little box. The collet's in a little teeny plastic bag. Okay, it'll look like this. There's your nut. Here's the collet. It sets like this. It's tapered. Put that up there so you can see it. The tapered part goes up into the spindle. So it'll go into the nut like that. And it's going to have to, if it's like a router, it's going to have to snap in there. And it does, just like that. It snaps in so that when you take it out, it doesn't just fall out. Once you have that in there, you can put it back into the spindle, which we'll want to turn. Of course, I'm not going to put a bit in it because I'm not quite ready to do a startup, but that's the collet assembly. Okay, back to the lubrication part here. You need to put you don't want a ton of it on there. The old saying, a little goes a long way, a lot will go a lot further, well, you'll end up with a mess. Actually, I may put it onto this shop towel. And we'll do the rub-on thing because I had it dripping down there. I want to get these rods. This dries pretty quick, so don't be dawdling while you're doing this. Now, of course, I'll need to move the carriage over so I can get the rest of the rods. That's all there is to that, and then clean up my little spill down here. That takes care of the Y-axis rod. I'll do the same thing up here on the top for the X-axis. You may not think you're putting any on there, but you are. Just don't wait too long with this because it will dry. And I need to move this. Guess I could have plugged it in and moved it, but we're not to that step yet. If you go back and rub your finger on this, you'll feel just how slick that is. Okay, that's all there is to the lubrication part. Okay, one of the last things I'm going to cover on the assembly, which is pretty much the final step of the assembly, are the hold downs. And it's very simple. You have a little metal plate, which looks like this. And you have some hardware that screws into it. And on the bottom of that's a little T-nut. While I was putting these together, I wasn't even going to cover this part until I ran into a little bit of something. Okay, you've got the machine screw that goes down through the plate. You've got a wing nut. You run up the machine screw, you got a washer underneath it. On the bottom is one of the little T-nuts, which slides into the extrusion so you can hold down your work. Well, one of those T-nuts I have right here, I kept fumbling with it and I couldn't get it to start. I looked at it close, there's no threads in it. So I'm going to have to go down in the shop and find a tap and tap this out. Fortunately, I've got a set of metric taps. This happens, perhaps you've been building something, or you've gone to the store and you bought a box of nuts and bolts and something's missing a thread. It happens in manufacturing. This just got back by QC. Not really faulting SainSmart or anybody on this. This kind of stuff happens. It's just kind of a nuisance when it does. But otherwise, that's the end of my assembly on this. Hoping you got a little something out of it. On the next part, we'll be actually doing the setup and test on it. But if I try to do that along with this one, everything will get too long, because as I mentioned at the beginning, I'm going to show everything on here in detail, including the mistakes I make, and you've got to see it. So if you got something out of this, again, appreciate getting a thumbs up. It helps the channel. Of course, we're always looking for subscribers. Next to that subscribe button's a little bell. You ring that bell, you'll be notified when I post another video. Otherwise, I'm Roger with my CNC 318 PROVer from SainSmart. See you in the next one.